Hey everyone, thanks for joining us again for another episode of the Kazumatsu.org AIR Bookclub Podcast. Today we're doing Misuzu's route, and it's going to be quite an episode because we have way too much to talk about. This episode, if you were following, has left us with a cliffhanger. We just had Yukito seemingly disappear, and we're wondering what the hell is going on there. But in the meantime, we're free to speculate what everything has happened in this route and analyze it. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, joining me today, we have Biscuito,
Roxai,
Bowie,
Hello.
Etheria,
Salutations.
Linkthinks,
Hey.
and Yarian.
What's up, guys?
Yarian's joining us once again, this time hopefully not as a ghost, but if something bad happens midway through, then he obviously will be a potato again. But so far, so good. How's it like being a potato for a whole episode, Yarian?
Pico, Pico.
well said.
Net covers that.
Yeah, he's still got a bit of Pekingese in him. So Aizen Kobe asks us, when Misuzu tells Yukito about her dreams slowly deteriorating her body, she says that after seeing her final dream, she'll become like the girl in the sky. Does this imply that the girl in the sky is dead, or does a different fate await Misuzu should she experience her final dream? Now, that's definitely interesting, because at this point, we've already heard the myth that the girl will die. That's stated quite bluntly that she will die.
Yeah,
but Misuzu's
when she
saying,
wakes up on the final day.
yeah, the final day where she doesn't see her dream anymore or whatever. But here, Misuzu is saying that she'll become like the girl in the sky. So yeah, what do you make of that, guys?
I think it's like you said. The way I interpret it is that, yeah, it would be deceased. I'm going to imagine the original girl in the sky is probably not there anymore, because otherwise she wouldn't be having these dreams of the past. So, and yeah, the foretold death makes it kind of ominous.
And there's also the point that's always brought up about kind of the premonition to begin with is like it's always it mentions like that this is a repeating occurrence that has happened before with multiple people, as his mother says. So it kind of makes one think that I guess that's a possibility. Like maybe that was a ways back because that happens.
There's a lot of unanswered questions. This is probably the territory we're probably not going to know until we read further on. But the whole we have the idea that there is a girl in the sky even now. How is she in the sky if she's dead? Is she an angel? I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered
question about who is the girl in the sky?
Oh yeah.
Is she this omnipotence that's just always been there and she's on her own, or was she a person at some time? And are all of the other girls just a part of it doesn't make sense, I guess. There's a question there about that.
Yeah, this is something I was thinking about when I was reading the route, is how fantastic the device of dreams is used in this route. Because Air is still a relatively mundane setting. It's just a country town by the sea, and somehow Yukito has to find this girl in the sky, and his only connection there is through the dreams of a girl he meets, So it's I really dig that. It's not so in your face as Kano's route, where it's kind of I guess that was a bit more abstract, a lot more obviously supernatural. In this one, the supernatural aspect is told through the dreams, and except for maybe towards the end. But I felt like that was really good storytelling. I really appreciate the kind of device. I thought that was worth noting. So I guess to answer your question, Eisen, we don't know. It brings up a lot of unanswered questions so far.
Yeah, it's like that thing, she was been there for a very long time, and she's there even now. What does that even mean?
And I also really like how the dream's going back in time. They make that very clear, and then eventually she's not in the sky and she's on the ground with humans, and that's very interesting.
Yeah,
And
that
it's
was
also,
weird.
like, it's also some, like, his mother talks about how she went on her journey and found that person. Like, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, like you said, the whole it's repeating.
Yeah, like
the way
it's not
the way I
just locked to one person.
Yeah, the way I interpreted that is there's some sort of like reincarnation stuff going on. I think that's kind of the angle they're going with. That there was a girl that Yukito's mother met, and her mother, that had the exact same condition and eventually died from it. And it's just like a repeating curse. And Yukito's mother wants him to break the cycle, I guess. That was another key point, actually. Who brought that one up? Yeah. So, Aizen's saying, Yukito's mother mentions being with someone like Misuzu before, but had no idea how to save her at the time. It makes me wonder, could Yukito's ancestors have found several different incarnations of the girl in the sky in the past? And if so, why is Yukito the only person who could save her? Couldn't some of his ancestors do something about it? So yeah, my answer is yes, I believe. That's what I think. I reckon it's like reincarnation going on. Did you guys get a similar impression?
Yeah, that was my
Absolutely.
exact impression.
Definitely
Cool.
what I get. And it definitely seems like it has to be like different person to different person, and it works that way because one thing that I really noticed and found interesting about this, about Yukito's situation specifically, is that his mother tells him that the girl is going to be brave and tell the person trying to be with her to leave. However, Misuzu's different. Misuzu specifically like doesn't want Yukito to leave. Which I just thought that was kind of a very different take.
It's,
Like, you know, not all situations are the same.
I still think Misuzu's really brave.
Yeah, I think so too, but at the same time, like, you know deep down that she doesn't want him to leave, and she's
Yeah.
definitely denies the whole, like, he's like, okay, I gotta go, and she, like, is following him, like, no, you're not going anywhere, you know?
Yeah, that's
Like,
true. It is
she's
different.
Kind of blocking out that reality. She doesn't want that to happen.
But that, yeah, back to Aizen's question. Why is Yukito the only person who can save her? Could some of his ancestors do something? So,
The doll caught my attention on this.
yeah, but I think that's also drawing an assumption that there is something like Yukito can do about it. Maybe they're just kind of like placing the burden on him and just like hoping for the best. But what you say is true. He does have the doll, and there was that whole shenanigans at the very end about like his mother being inside the doll, and then Yukito goes inside the doll. I guess it was. We still don't know what's going on there, but that seems to be the biggest difference I can imagine.
Well,
Do you want to?
haven't they all had the doll? Because didn't in the
Yeah.
flashback his mother mentioned that the doll contained the memories of not only her but also her mother and her mother's mother. So I sort of saw it as
Oh,
the doll
okay.
has been passed down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
that's
was
what
like
I was
their
about to say.
wishes to save the girl in the sky were put into that, and like it's moving it forward, so that
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, that does make
destiny
sense.
awaits. You know,
It
So-
kind of seems like the power in the doll has just accumulated over, a long period of time.
Right. So I guess by that logic, then the doll has more power than ever to do whatever it is it's going to do. So yeah.
In terms of why they couldn't do anything about it, I was thinking his mother lists all those things that the ways Yukito might choose to use the puppet, like to achieve a different goal. Like
Yeah.
she says, like you might use it to make money or whatever, and she lists a bunch of things. Like
well, she mentions like her powers, like she makes him forget that moment for who knows how long, and she says, well, you know, the humans live to find their own happiness, and she wants him to be able to, you know, carve his own path and find what he truly wants, and to not just live his life doing this one thing, which is kind of like what she did, you know. She kind of took off, and we didn't see her, well, if she is who she is, we didn't see her for such a long time, because she was spending her entire life trying to solve this one thing, or trying to find this one thing. only to find out that it didn't work. So she just kind of came back and was like, well, I'm going to tell you this, but I'm not going to force it upon you. You can let it happen or not. You can do whatever you want, but I'm just going to make sure that you know.
Good mother, in my opinion.
Those things that she lists actually like correlate with choices you can make in the game that lead to bad ends.
Oh. Ooh, that's a good point. I like that. Yeah, this idea that the player's freedom in the game is reflective of Yukito's freedom that was given to him by his mother, like the freedom to do whatever he wants. He can like choose to just settle down in the town with some girl in Kano's route, or he can, just try and make money and kind of end up nowhere. I really did like that twist at the ending where it turns out, oh, I've forgotten, I need to make people happy, that's what's more important to me. That was a really good scene for me.
Oh, the scene where he asked the kids.
Yeah.
That was my favorite scene.
I love that.
I had been waiting for him to do that the whole time. And then
the music
it happened.
kicks in. Oh.
Yeah.
My eyes got a little teary.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that scene because, first of all, Natsukage starts playing.
But that was the best. That was the best Natsukage in the whole
Misuzu's
game.
not there.
Yes.
But what's going on, and it reminded me of whenever he gets the map updated earlier, and Misuzu leaves, but Natsukage keeps playing as he's wandering the town because it's like Misuzu's with him with the map,
Yeah.
But Yukito reaches this realization at this point where he realizes that all that he ever wanted was right before him the entire time.
Yeah. The scales have been lifted from his
He's
eyes.
like, the girl's been right by me. She's been smiling ever since I got here. It's just always been this way, and I'm just gonna leave? He's like, oh, hell no, I'm sticking this out,
It's a really big point of growth for his character, Just going from, the pragmatic, I don't give a shit guy to being all,
And it hits
So
hard
could that
because...
wait, hold on, Biz? Could that be Aizen's other point? His first point, the tadpole.
Ooh.
That was kind of how I was interpreting it. Yeah.
So
it's a reflection of growth.
Yeah, Aizen's point was, why does Misuzu call Yukito a tadpole? Is there any way this could be symbolic of Yukito's personality or his journey to find the girl in the sky? Metamorphosis? Growing... Yeah, on a journey of growth,
growing
I guess.
independent.
Yeah.
If
Being
you,
able to make his own decisions.
if you take it literally, you could kind of look at it as he's growing from. He's just sort of been adrift in life, sort of like a tadpole in a river.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then all of a sudden now he's growing his own legs and he's learning, to stand on his own.
And so
how to go
as
after his own goals.
he's on the bus stop, he's like, now is my chance to make my life choice. He's like, this is what I will do,
Wow, we got there, guys. Oh, I wasn't sure if we could answer that one.
Momentum.
Yeah.
But I feel like what made this scene hit really hard for me isn't so much the scene itself, but of course the build-up of it, because Yukito talks about his premonition forever ago. He's like, when he was thinking about the girl in the sky, and he's like, I had this horrible premonition, and he didn't know what it was, but he gets distracted or something and doesn't get to finish thinking about it.
Yeah.
But whenever he finally figures it out, and he remembers the entire story,
Yeah.
from that point forward, I don't know about you guys, but for the rest of the entire route, I had a lump in my throat. Because I was just like, damn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it all connects. But what he's saying does not sound so good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The sense of foreboding.
I don't know. I've said it before, but obviously my favorite track in this VN is Nocturne, and this was one of the key points where it plays, where he's trying to remember what's going on. He's he says the quote audibly, and like the rest of it comes to his mind in that moment. It's like fragments of what was lost drift through the evening while Nocturne's playing, and I'm just like, oh yes, like that was such an amazing scene, because you're like, it's literally scales falling from your eyes, like you're finally getting what is going on with Yukito, like he's starting to realize why he's there, and like fate has brought him here, basically.
It's another very common trope of key games where the protagonist remembers something from his childhood that he'd long forgotten.
Well,
Like that-
it actually it
That's
answered.
pretty much canon.
It answered a question, we had in the earlier common root or whichever one it got brought up about, Yukito, he doesn't know his own age, he doesn't have any memories of his past, and, it tells us why, because his mom literally took them from him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, what have I lost on this journey? It's his bond. His, more so than just his mother, but, losing actually his desire to make people happy, I think is another point there that's very important. Because, we did make a big note of that. What was it he lost in his past? But, it all came full circle. It ended up being a really important point.
I love how he explains it too, like, he said, like, a key turns the lock to a sad premonition or something. It's like it all is known to me now.
Yeah, this is why we have so much to talk
Such an
about.
epic scene.
I guess, like, continuing on from awesome scenes in this route, the scene where he calls Kawaguchi-san and, like, you should, like, play with Misuzu right now, and what's the name of the song?
Nocturne plays again.
No, it's not Nocturne. It's
When Misuzu tells him
Twin
that
Stars.
he's enough.
Twin Stars.
Sosei, yeah.
Sosei, that's the one.
That's a really good one. That's
So yeah,
Oh, yeah,
Sosei,
yeah.
Sosei
It is,
starts playing at the climax.
I was thinking
and,
of a different scene.
Yeah, and so that really hit me hard because that song.
It makes
that
me think of Star-Crossed Lovers.
But the idea that Kawaguchi isn't just ignoring Misuzu because she's unpopular or anything. She actually tried to make friends with Misuzu, but the first time she did, she burst out crying. So like, she knew that there was nothing she could do about it, and Misuzu accepted that. And
It's like Misuzu said. She's like, well, she's a good person, so she knows not to mess with me. Like,
yeah, like that's the point where Yukito's starting to get really angry about the situation. Just like, why? Surely you want to be, happy and have friends and stuff too. And she's just like, well, I've got you. It's just, that got me really hard. That was a very emotional scene. I wasn't expecting Kawaguchi to come back like that, but I was really glad that we got some sort of closure there. Did you guys like that scene too?
yes.
Yeah, it was a really powerful scene.
Considering how short Misuzu is, there were a lot of emotional scenes.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, because, I mean, a lot of it plays into what Common was thus
Right.
far. Like, you've basically only known Misuzu, and you've been living in this house and stuff like that, so it feels, it's longer than it looks, I guess.
Like, I really haven't heard many people talking about this route. Like, I didn't have much expectations, but then I came in, and this might be my favorite so far. It's just, like, really tightly
definitely
written.
my favorite. Yep.
It's just, I mean, I love Minagi, but very long, has some faults, some quite obvious flaws. But I felt like Misuzu's route was much more, like, tightly written. And,
I think
I
that's
mean,
true.
yeah, I don't know. There's still
They-
a lot of unanswered questions, but
They're both very different.
yeah.
So I kind of find it hard to compare the two. But, like, one of, getting a little out there, but one of the reasons that I like Minagi is because it's different. Like, it's kind of standalone in AIR.
Yeah, I can dig that. And it definitely not discrediting Minagi, because I really did love it. But if I were to draw a direct comparison, I feel like I'm enjoying Misuzu more. Probably shouldn't compare them like that, though.
Misuzu leaves you with a lot more questions.
It definitely does. So I'm
it's
interested to
definitely
see.
leading you towards something.
I wonder if my impression will change when more information is presented. But anyway,
I mean, and you're in Yukito's mind, so it's actually really nice how, as he's coming to these recollections, you're also like trying to kind of figure out what's going on. And it reminds me of, I remember Pepe was talking about this actually. He was saying like you wanted him to do something, but he was like, no, Misuzu needs me, because like you start getting really attached to what's going on. So definitely really good job there.
Anyway, Aizen, I hate to keep you feeling like we ignored you, but you made your key point about this. So, why does Yukito call Shigemi Kawaguchi twice in the same route to be Misuzu's friend? Is he desperate, or does he believe that she has the closest affinity with Misuzu since she is her classmate? Why couldn't he just call some of her other classmates, like Minagi or Kano? Discuss.
I was
That
gonna
is
say
a very good question.
he probably calls her the second time, like, simply because she was the one he called before. Because her name's right next to Misuzu's.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, he
just
probably
sorta-
doesn't have Minagi or Kano's phone number.
Well, sort of
No.
start at the end and work backwards. I know they all went to the same school, but I mean that's not even a guarantee that Minagi and Kano. Minagi may have been, but I'm pretty sure. Did Kano even know Misuzu? I can't remember. I don't think she did.
It doesn't ever say.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
never established.
But yeah, you know, Yukito, every time he calls up Kawaguchi, he grabs the class roster, and she's the one who was sitting directly behind or in front. I can't remember which one.
Behind.
Yeah,
believe.
directly behind Misuzu. And it just so happened that, you know, he got the one person who had actually tried reaching out to her before.
Yeah. I mean, his intuition was right.
Apparently frogs can symbolize dreaming. I didn't know that.
No.
I didn't know that.
Motherfucker.
That sounds.
There are many different kinds
kind
of
BS
symbolisms
to me.
in this world.
And always
Yeah, that's
probably
the thing.
read
I'm trying to
about all
figure
of
out
them.
exactly like why that link is there.
So, I guess we'll move on to the next key point. So, Aizen Kobu, once again, asks, we all know the details of Misuzu's condition and its effects on Yukito, but why does he feel pain in his back specifically? Did he injure himself there previously, or is it representative of his decision to stay with Misuzu? He didn't injure himself previously, let's be honest.
Yeah. I'm not sure about all that. I mean, I don't think I could answer, like, why specifically. I mean, we already know that it's happening because, or at least as far as we know, it's happening because of, I guess what would you call it? I guess a curse? I don't know.
I
Like,
think I can answer it.
because of their togetherness.
Yeah. I mean,
but-
isn't that the point? Like, the idea is that if Yukito spends time with Misuzu, then he will feel her pain, and they'll both probably die. We know that Misuzu is, like, connected to the girl in the sky, so wouldn't it be natural that he also... Wait.
Well,
Now
the
I'm-
question
now
is
I'm
why
second-guessing
myself.
I think the
specifically
point
it's
is
the
why in his
back.
back.
Yeah, now I'm second-guessing myself. Does Misuzu feel pain in her back?
She never
She-
specified.
No,
it
just
says-
she's
She feels
in
pain.
It says she feels unimaginable pain, and what I
Yeah.
think of when I think of that is, like, humans don't have wings, and having wings is kind of like an imaginable thing, and since the pain is in the back, they're imagining wings that are hurting.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what Pepe said.
When I
So-
when I hear unimaginable, I think of something that is like beyond comprehension, like the air around you is hurting and you're feeling that too. Like there's just pain everywhere is what I like to think of.
That's an interesting way of phrasing it. The air around you is in pain.
Yeah, but like I guess there's an interesting point about this pain thing that I recalled actually when I was reading, and I was just kind of like, oh, well that's interesting. Is that in the very, very beginning of the visual novel, whenever he wakes up on the seawall after Misuzu was messing with him with his sleep, he says he wakes up with a pain in his back.
Oh, really?
Oh, I didn't
that
even remember
I
that.
thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'd easily pass that off because I wake up
Because
with,
he was
like,
laying on
Because
his
he's
back.
laying on a
Yeah.
concrete wall.
Exactly.
and like I can relate to the feeling of like pain in my back, like it feels like I've got wings or something. I have that every morning, but
Oh, yeah.
but the fact that it's like phrased in this way and it keeps coming up, it's definitely more than a coincidence. And nice pick up there, Biz. Very interesting. Moving on to Aizen's next key point, we have before Yukito leaves Misuzu.
Misuzu.
Before Yukito leaves Misuzu, he points out that the cards in her hand symbolize her. In what way could the deck of cards be symbolic of Misuzu? That was a really interesting line that just came out of nowhere and went back to nowhere. What do you guys think about this?
The first thing I thought was just that the cards were basically... He meant the cards were basically her life now. That she had nothing else to do but play with the cards.
I mean, she's always
think
playing like
it's
solitaire or whatever.
Less literal, like not so much just the cards, but the fact that she's sitting there playing cards by herself is symbolic of Misuzu, I think is what's trying to be portrayed there. Like the fact that it's a person playing, you know, a two-player game by themselves or whatever she's doing, I don't actually really know. But the fact that she's playing a game, which is probably meant to be with two people by herself, is symbolic of Misuzu's loneliness. Like it's just kind of a
that's a good
sad
point.
scene.
Yeah, because I guess
Mystery
like,
solved.
You can play cards by yourself, but it's definitely something that's a lot more fun with two people.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I'm happy
That's the
with
best
that
thing I can come
interpretation.
up with.
Yeah, I'm happy with that interpretation. Hopefully Aizen is too. If he isn't, he'll let us know.
Just gonna have to Google card symbolism.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Figure out what's going on. Bowie, you're the man.
Trump.
All you get is the card
Trump.
symbols. Like that's all Google gives me.
Tarampu. I also like.
Talampu.
I guess like the cards are like the first thing that symbolizes Misuzu's friendship, because throughout the route there's this constant like, "Come on, Yukito, play cards with me." It's like, no, it's like, good gal.
And then when he finally starts to, or decides to, is when she starts feeling pain.
Yeah, exactly. That's
And
the
then-
point. That's the
then
line he
whenever-
crosses.
Remember the first day that, or the day that Misuzu started feeling sick in school and Haruko picks her up and she doesn't tell him about it? Haruko comes home whenever they're about to play cards and Haruko's like, "Kids, go to bed, go to bed, go to bed," and like shoos her out of the room. Like it's kind of like she's trying to separate them. Because I guess it's like,
yeah.
the cards really are, it actually makes a lot of sense. The cards are very symbolic of her like relationships. Like it kind of, it's a recurring thing that she wants to play cards but she can't, you know.
It's a symbol of friendship, and the friendship she can't have.
Or the
with other
lack
people.
thereof.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah. I'm
We
good
got
with that.
around.
That's good.
We
Yeah.
got
job,
around
team.
here.
Good job, guys.
Good job, Moe
punch,
boys.
Good job,
Yeah.
boys.
So, Aizen, thank you for all of your amazing key points. You really pulled out a lot on us this time. We spent the good first third of the podcast talking about them.
Good show.
Or first quarter. But yeah, good job, man. Really appreciate it. You've been on the ball with this book club. So next we're moving on to Notkion, who is the next to share his own key points. And we have the first one. Whenever someone tries to get close to Misuzu, she starts crying uncontrollably. This creates an artificial distance. What if they kept trying to get closer? What if they ignored her cries and gave her only their platonic love? Kind of feel that's what happened.
Exactly what
Yeah,
happened.
that's kind of what Yukito already did.
Then they die.
Well, we don't know. It didn't. it didn't really reach that point.
No, I think we do know. I mean, it seemed pretty clear that they would die if it kept going.
I think so.
Yukito made it very apparent. He was very serial about it.
It seems to me that, like, whenever they do, I feel like what happens is whenever the person tries to get closer, then that's when they start feeling the pain as well, because it's like, that's another element that comes into play that prevents them from being able to do what they want to do. Like, Yukito could totally just be like, yo, I'm gonna pick you up out of this bed and I'm gonna run you to the beach. You don't need to walk. I got it. But, well, guess what? You have an insane amount of pain in your back and you're on the ground for the next couple hours. Like,
it's like whoever designed this curse really thought it out well.
Yeah, like, it's just like his mother told him, like, all she wanted to do was do this one thing, but nothing in the world was going to let her do it.
I was like, surely they can go to the beach, surely. You know, it's not that far, you can do it, and it just never happened. It's just, things kept getting in the way.
I remember even whenever he comes to the decision that, you know, I have to leave, I can't stay here, it's because, like, he's starting to lose control, like, he can't even stand up properly.
Yeah. The feeling I got was that if they were able to get to the beach, it would create a contradiction and kind of break the curse. Like, that's kind of how these things go. Like, if a curse says something and you're able to do the opposite, then haven't you won? You know what I mean?
It's like it's like I was saying before, at all the times Nocturne plays is whenever Yukito is coming to these realizations about what his goal is, but what he learns is always something, like, really awful. Like, it's like this inevitability of the situation that he's in. What his mother says is just like, no matter what happens, this is what happened. And she tells him, you know, I don't want this to happen to you. I want you to beat this thing, but if it does, it does, you know.
Go on.
Speaking of the beach, there's something interesting I noticed, that we almost never see the water. There's just that one CG where they're climbing the mountain where you can barely see the water off in the distance, but even when you're, like, sitting on the embankment, you can't see the beach.
That's
it's
a
facing
very
the other way.
weird thing, isn't it? Like, why don't they have any backgrounds of the beach, of the sea? We get a sky.
Something they can't reach.
Maybe
right.
that's intentional.
When you said that, that's what made me think of it.
I don't think it's intentional, but it'd be cool if it was.
Yeah.
I think that's thinking a little too much into that, but it would be cool if it was.
I'm just thinking to the anime where you see the sea plenty, because it's an anime, you can't avoid that. But yeah, maybe looking too much into it. So yeah, something I was just thinking about was, I got really angry at Yukito when he decided to leave. I was like, what the hell, man?
I feel like there's kind of like, there's a good side and a bad side, I guess. Like, it's really infuriating whenever he makes that decision, but you know why he makes it. It's like he's finally understanding now why Haruko is the way that she is. Like, he's starting to get it. And, like, I wanted to say that, like, him and Haruko obviously have, like, these differing views, but it's like they're both a little right and they're both a little wrong, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, Haruko is right in how she's treating the situation, because what she's saying is technically true, that if you distance yourself from Misuzu, then she's fine. Yeah, like, Yukito starts to understand why Haruko is distancing herself, and I guess that's kind of what powers his decision to leave. But at the same time, I mean, he's not going to change who he is, which is why whenever he's at the bus stop, like, he changes his mind, and he's like, no, I'm going to see this thing out. So, I didn't take it that bad.
It felt a little bit forced to me. Like,
he was trying to do what was best for both of them. Like, he was trying to see it from a realist perspective of, if I stay here, I'm in a bunch of pain, you care about me and you don't want me to be in pain. If I'm here, then you're in pain, I care about you and don't want you to be in pain, so let's go our separate ways. Like,
But in the scene before, he was all like, "I'm not gonna leave
I know.
you." You know?
I know. I was just about to bring that up. He had just told her, he was like, "I will never leave you. I will stay here by you." And then he's like, "I'm leaving, Misuzu." And she's like, "But
isn't that the same time whenever he just gets like knocked out with pain though?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's like I said before. Once the person who's with the girl starts doing whatever they want to do and ignoring that inevitability of them not being able to be together, then that's when they start getting hit by it and he can't do anything. He becomes powerless. And I mean, Yukito also wants to leave like on a good note. Because whenever he leaves and he's running off and he turns around and tells her to stay strong. He's always telling her, keep fighting. And he sees her over his shoulder and she's, doing the peace sign. It's just like the victory sign, and it's like she's bravely doing what she can, and that will be my last memory of her. Like, he wants to leave on a good note.
Yeah.
So, I didn't see it as bad. Like, yeah, it's rough, like, but I mean, I don't see how it couldn't be.
Yeah. I don't know, like, I'm definitely in the camp where I'm perfectly content with a sappy ending where they both just die together. It'd be horrible, but it might be more pleasant than the alternative. You know what I mean? It's like, would you rather spend the rest of your life in like regret, or would you like spend the last moments content? Sort of question. Even if they couldn't do anything.
The answer to that is you want to spend your life doing whatever it is that you want to do, regardless of what lemons life decides to throw you. Which I think is the decision that he makes at the end.
That's true. He did make that decision in the end. Good on you, Yukito. You got there eventually, even if there was that bit of forced drama.
I mean, well, who's? I don't see it so forced. Like, whose life doesn't go? Like, who doesn't live their life without having, ups and downs and making breakneck decisions? Like, I know I have.
Maybe I'm a bit harsh on him. But I really felt like he was going against his character at that scene.
Well, there's some other implications behind that too, if you think about it, because we were talking about earlier that you're sort of seeing the dreams as sort of like a reincarnation cycle.
What? You cut out for a second there.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, like, if you're looking at it from the idea of everything is sort of a cycle that's been going on. The dream she's seeing is maybe her past self or past lives that have been lived by the girl in the sky or whatever. If you look at it, then this would be just continuing that cycle by Yukito's actions of running away. Because if you just look at the results, then that means it's the same thing as mother, his grandmother, her mother. They all did the same thing because they all met the girl. And yet they're all still alive, which means they all met her and chose to leave instead of staying with her. So he's not the first one who's faced this decision, and he's not the first one who ever came to that conclusion that it would be better to leave and live than, both of them die.
Are you sure you're not jumping to conclusions there? I'd like to bring up Pepe's key point. Why do you think all the incarnations of the girl in the sky seem to remain childlike? In this, he's referring to the little scene where it's like she's always been alone, continually disappearing without ever growing up. That's right.
Always staying the same.
Yeah. And she'll end her life still a girl. That's what it says. So, what do you make of that?
I think that it's pretty likely it's what happened to the original girl in the sky, whoever she was. Is that she died young.
But they all died young.
Yeah.
So they continue their curse.
Yeah, I see what Link's saying and makes sense.
But isn't that a conclusion too, though? Because we don't know what happened to the other girls. Because his mom, the girl that she met, who was that version of the girl in the sky, she left her because her mom's still alive. If she'd stayed with her, then the curse would have killed her. She tells us that much. So what happened to her? You can assume she died, but you don't know for sure. which, I mean, I guess it's a strong assumption considering that Misuzu's there.
Yeah.
Another thing that's interesting is that after, I guess it's like his mother kind of lived out her purpose in her mind. Like her goal was passed, but after she returns and like says that whatever happened, she also like kind of disappears.
Literally disappears.
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me of Kano's route, where he says there would literally be nothing of me left.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that a key point?
We also have whatever the hell happens at the end of this route. These things are definitely all related.
No, it wasn't a key point, but I do remember someone bringing up in the forum the connection there that he was somehow able to pour himself into that feather to save Kano.
Yeah,
but
Nafyon said that.
yeah, okay, but yeah, so here we have him pouring himself into a doll, which is like, and he did end up losing himself this time. I guess no, that was not Con's point. Yeah, it's just worded weirdly, so I didn't catch it. What is Yukito's other power, and how does it relate to Misuzu and Kano? So yeah, that's his other power. This being able to. We don't really understand it yet.
I didn't really see it as his other power. I feel like him being able to control the puppet is him putting himself into it. Like, I feel like that's.
I thought they
same.
directly said in Kano's route that it was his Hojutsu.
Yeah, I thought it was the same.
That's kind of the conclusion we reached. Yeah, I'm inclined to think that way.
Well, it's kind of reinforced because he loses the Hojutsu right after that too.
Yeah, so I got a little bit confused when Nokon said other power, because I'm like, isn't it just Hojutsu? But yeah.
Well, I think he does. I think there are other powers because his mother mentions that Hojutsu is obviously not their only power, because she mentions she has the power to take his memories away. That's another form of her power, which I think he also has another one that his sort of in the interaction with his mom is where I got the idea that his other power is the ability to make other people happy. And because and the reason I got that idea is his mom, whenever she's teaching Hojutsu, she tells him the reason he's using Hojutsu is to make other people happy. And you can see you can get an idea that she feels unfulfilled at that point, because she uses the line that she says something to the fact he has to learn this to be able to make people happy. And her line was, because I'm not good enough. And so she's looking at it that, she's failed at this point. And so she's sort of passing off that torch to Yukito, because she keeps driving that point home that it's not about him being able to move the puppet. Like, that's not the main reason he's learning this. He's learning this in order to make people smile.
Yeah. That actually comes back to a quote earlier in the Misuzu route, where she's like, Yukito-san, you can make children laugh. Just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Just...
Well, I also remember at the same time, I wonder if it's like a rule to his having the power, because his mother also tells him that he's never going to make the puppet move unless he aims to make people happy.
Yeah. Like, it needs a wish to grant. That's what she said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it almost seems like it's kind of like a rule and not so much a separate thing. Like, I feel like it's connected.
It's very interesting. His Hojutsu is like deeply connected to wanting to make people happy.
Maybe his mother did have more powers, because wasn't something said before about how, the power obviously weakens through generations, and his is obviously like much less. So I would definitely understand that his mother could have other powers, and that he couldn't. But at the same time, like, this is probably a bit of a stretch, but like, if Hojutsu is your ability to kind of put yourself into things and kind of change where, like, I guess your life energy goes, I guess the same thing could be said that I guess his mother could pull herself from him, like, because her existence, like, she could remove that. Like, she puts it into the puppet, but at the same time makes Yukito forget. So like, if she is capable of kind of controlling where she is, then I guess she could remove herself from someone's
Memory.
mind as well.
This is reminding me of
yeah.
this is reminding me of Shakugan no Shana. Has anyone seen that?
No, not yet.
I've only seen like 6 episodes.
There's a lot
Yeah.
to watch.
I've seen
So
the
no.
first season.
It basically plays with this idea that a person's like life force and their existence, as in how people remember them, are the same thing. You know, it's kind of an
so I
intangible.
feel like that applies
yeah.
here too. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like because she removes herself and puts it into the puppet, that she's removing herself from everything. Like,
Yeah.
it's all going there.
Yeah. And so the memories, and yeah, I like that. That's a very interesting way of looking at it. Like, it kind of brings it all back to how Hojitsu isn't just a bunch of unrelated superpowers. It's actually more focused than that. It's
In the air.
it's applying one skill in different ways. I definitely
there's
prefer
also
that
the point-
interpretation.
There's also the point that as he becomes in tune with what his goal is to make other people happy, he starts getting his memories back about that thing, and it's like she said, like it has to be tapped into, like that memory.
Yeah.
You need to have, that understanding to get it, and so that's kind of how it comes to him, I guess.
And the whole point of that was just to make sure that Yukito led his own life. Like, she wasn't like forcing him down a certain path.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate that. She's a great mother.
Isn't
Props
she
to
great?
her.
I mean, like, I guess because of her, being so distant from him in her journey, was something that she probably regretted, and that's why she wanted to give him the freedom of choice.
Man, you know what makes me sad? That we never got CGs of her. Seriously.
Yeah.
Like, if Shiraho can get a
didn't even
CG,
think about that.
Shiraho got like 2 CGs, and Yukito's mother didn't get 1. Seriously? That feels a bit wrong. But it wouldn't be the first time Keys prioritized weird characters in their works.
And forgotten about others.
Yeah.
Are we sure that wouldn't be the first? Never mind.
Or the last. So yeah, this also brings to mind Pepe's next key point is just what is she? Is she really even Yukito's mum? He's obviously very skeptical of this. What
That's
do you
very
guys...
rude, Pepe.
Pepe. Do you think...
I was under the impression that yes, it's Yukito's mom.
Considering they have the same
I mean-
power and it's been passed down through their ancestry.
It is very interesting that whenever he has those like premonitions or whenever he has those thoughts, he hears her voice, and he's like actually listening to it. Like he even
Yeah.
says like I intently listen to what she's saying. I thought that was interesting. I don't know if that has really anything, like, if there's an actual point to that other than just,
It could have
Wanted to voice
have
her,
to
but
do with her
I
being
don't-
inside the puppet that he always has with him.
maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
She's an alien.
Because it does happen. You're right. It does happen at the end. You hear her voice again when she's talking.
Yeah.
She's talking to him, and it doesn't sound like a memory either. It sounds like she's actually telling him something.
Yeah, through the puppet.
Yeah, she's probably not even
really
dead in a
interesting.
physical sense.
Huh.
She's just doing some Jedi shit.
Have to be serious.
Use the Hojitsu, Yukito.
So,
I'm sorry.
so are we
Yukito is a Jedi.
are we in a roundabout way saying that Yukito's mom goes well with tea?
Going back to Pepe's point, so why do you think all the girls in the sky remain childlike? Either they are dying from the curse because someone stayed too close to them. It does make you think, though. Is this a curse that, like, follows through every girl? You'd assume it would, otherwise it wouldn't keep perpetuating. That's my understanding.
You could also look at it from more like, I guess, realistic point of view, where like the girls are kind of coming to that age where people start looking for partners, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So like just so happens to be at that time over and over again. I don't know.
It does make me wonder, though. Let's say that Yukito's mother left the previous girl, and she still died anyway. Is that is that
that was
implied
another
there?
not Kyon's points. Like, would Misuzu still have been suffering if Yukito was, for example, with Minagi or Kano?
Yeah, like
No.
we don't know. It only seems implied that might be the case. That even if Yukito does leave, she'll still die eventually. That's really sad to think about.
I mean, he leaves for a day, and when he comes back, she seems pretty out of it. So,
yeah, she's not any better.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. But at the same time, at the very, very end, when she wakes up, I guess she didn't seem all that bad? I don't know.
No, but she was like, I didn't think I'd wake up again.
Yeah, so...
Yeah. So I'm thinking that's the case, and that's kind of depressing to think about. But there's also this parallel with Misuzu's maturity. I really wanted to talk about this. So we're presented with Misuzu at the start of the game as a very like immature girl. Like she acts like a small child, as Yukito comments quite a bit, I think. And that's weird. I mean, you could pin it down to her not having any friends, and so that her kind of social development is very stunted. But I don't know, maybe that's part of the curse as well. I was just thinking back to the scene where we meet the little girl.
Saika?
Saika, that's the one. Yeah.
Saika!
And I thought that
Rokusai.
scene didn't need to happen. It was just kind of thrown in there at the point where you're starting to get into her route. Like, you could still be on the common route and
I loved that
see
scene. I loved that whole scenario.
Yeah.
But it
It was
didn't.
great.
It didn't seem like it was there for no reason. And then it got me thinking. We see this little girl and how she's like, Yukito's constantly comparing her to Misuzu. And I'm thinking, are they really trying to make us think about Misuzu's maturity level here? In like comparing her to a little girl. And then at the very next scene, it kind of caused me to change my opinion a little bit, because as soon as Misuzu arrives on the scene, she's helping the girl find her parents. She knows exactly how to deal with the situation, and it's just like making Yukito look like a kid. It's kind of like this. It's just juggling this idea of, is Misuzu mature or a kid? It's two conflicting ideas there. And I think that's kind of what they wanted to contrast there. This the immature Misuzu and the mature Misuzu with that scene. Did you guys get a similar feeling, or am I the
No.
only one here?
I feel like they were doing that the whole time, kind of. Like,
Yeah.
I think we brought up in the first podcast, like, she'd just make random comments where it'd be like, I didn't think she would ever think to say that because she acts so immature.
I wanted to bring up I absolutely love Misuzu for this. This is something that I didn't actually notice, or didn't really cling on to too much the first time I read, but I did this time, and it really caught my eye. I remember writing down the quote because I thought it was interesting. Like, I liked it, but I didn't read further into it, I guess. But the scene where she's talking about dinosaurs, and Yukito's like, why the hell dinosaurs? And he's like, they're grotesque or whatever. And she says that dinosaurs are romantic. And he's like, what? And it's because dinosaurs lived for a long time, became extinct, and they're a thing of the past that have met their end. And I thought that was really interesting. She's like, oh, I think that's kind of beautiful in a way. Which, I mean, it's
Yeah.
true. It's kind of like a bittersweet thing, you know? And again, it makes me think of Star-Crossed Lovers again, where it is romance. Like, it may end horrifically, but it's actually really romantic. It's like,
Yeah.
wow. It's like you said before about how you might just like it more if they just stay together and die together because,
Yeah.
you know, at least they're doing what they want, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. And that, like, really stood out. I was like, wow, Misuzu, nice! But he continues to say, and this is when it really hit me that Misuzu is like way smarter than you would think.
Yeah.
Is he asks her, well, what's ugly? And she says celebrities on TV are ugly. And I was like, damn. I was like, I love this girl.
I was not expecting that.
That was excellent.
No, that was one thing that really hit me this route is that just Misuzu is so much more self-aware and aware of everything around her than she looks. She's quite smart. Like, we go back to the idea that her social development is very stunted and she has, like, the characteristics of a young girl. But that doesn't mean her brain isn't developing. She's still, like, got the smarts of a girl her age. It's
You
just
could say that because she isn't, like, poisoned by society through, like, osmosis or whatever and being in the cruel world, because she's by herself, she's actually a bit more refined and intelligent because she gets to make more of her own decisions and kind of look at things as they are as opposed to how other people see them.
You're really putting her on a pedestal here.
I like this. I didn't notice this before, and it's actually really good because the first time I read, I did not like Misuzu one bit. So I'm definitely pointing this out that I was wrong.
She's definitely like the archetype of purity, I feel. It's kind of what her character screams. It's just everything about her is so pure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Yukito is just kind of like, everything she says, he's like making jokes about it and being really, you know, childish and snide about a lot of things that she's saying. It's just like, come on, dude. Like, and I mean, I guess that also makes sense because Yukito's been out in the world for a long time, so he's kind of got a lot of influences or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and that goes back to the point of how their relationship was perfect because, you know, Yukito isn't very friendly with her, but can still maintain a friend-like relationship, which kind of kills the curse for a little bit. But as we see, eventually they do cross that line and things start descending into a bit of a downward spiral when they start playing cards and stuff. I always thought it was a bit of a contradiction at the very beginning where it's like Misuzu actually says, "You're my friend, Yukito," even though they never declared that they were friends. And it's that point when I realized that's when things start getting really bad after that declaration. Like, it's not every time like they do something together that she breaks down. I liked how they handled that. It's only certain random points. It's very much something beyond her control and random. So, like, she can still have friends, but she will pay the price eventually. I did like how they did that.
You could also take it back to, like you said before, about how she dies whenever she's the girl is supposed to, like, doesn't get out of childhood or whatever. Like, that's when the curse happens, I guess. So you could probably, like, attribute it to that too.
Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break, guys. We'll be back for the second half in just a moment. So stay tuned. You can pause the video or the recording if you like and come back to it. But we'll be here in a moment. See you guys. back. So we've pretty much covered all of the key points now. And we're going to be moving on to our personal points. Kind of moving away from the forum discussion, going into our free-form discussion. Yerian, I know you have quite a bit to talk about, so would you mind jumping in with one of your own personal key points?
Oh, sure. So, one thing that hit me was Yukito, it was just one line, said, he remembered another girl with symptoms similar to Misuzu, and it was never brought up again. I was just sitting there thinking, so who is this girl?
That's a good question.
And I guess as soon as I typed that out, I thought, well, maybe it was just him remembering his mother's words about the girl with the symptoms.
Probably the most likely explanation.
I think that makes sense. I think you could also look into like if his mother's consciousness is in this doll and it's just always with him, then I suppose her memories and things are as well. So I guess that makes sense.
It wouldn't be Psycho, would it? Probably not. We don't really see much of Psycho. But we know she was in a hospital.
Never really says what for, though.
Yeah, that is an interesting point that they do make there. I guess they were just trying to make a nice little story kind of in there to kind of show, I guess, a lighter side to Yukito.
I don't know, going back to the Psycho tangent, I feel like that was put there for a reason. What I think that was basically we have this girl who's in the hospital for something probably serious, and she's just like up and about, like escaping the hospital like it's nothing and going having a good time. It paints this contrast to Misuzu, who is very sick and she can't leave her house no matter what she does. It's kind of like this opposing idea of freedom that Misuzu can't grab. Maybe I'm looking into it too much? I don't know.
That sounds pretty good.
It's possible.
I can see it.
Yeah. That's a bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to check.
I mean,
it.
I liked to paint it as like we said before about it, how it was kind of like Misuzu's maturity and ability to handle situations and Yukito's inability to handle situations, but the other thing about it is that he does care. Like, obviously, whenever he meets Psycho, like, all he does is care, like, about... I mean, he's like, oh, man, this sure is a drag. But at the same time, he's like, I see this girl without a parent, and I look one direction, and I see the ocean, and I look the other direction, and I see a road. So he's like, well, shit, I gotta do something for this girl. Like, he's like, this looks ridiculous, but, you know, someone has to be here for her. And then he looks to the map, and all of the things Misuzu put there for him just so happened to help his situation, so...
Right, I mean, you only get that scene in the first place if you choose to rely on Misuzu. You reject her map, you don't even get that scene.
Ah, okay. Can I just, like...
He also makes the money for the slot.
Can I just take a moment, because we didn't point this out earlier, but Winter Confetti did a great job on those maps.
Yeah, those do look really good.
I don't think we mentioned it earlier.
No, we didn't.
They kind of mentioned it with like the localization changes, but
Yeah,
yeah,
talking
didn't
about
really
the,
talk about
okay.
the map itself.
But yeah, like, very good job, like, translating all the different text and, like, making it feel very Misuzu. And yeah, there was that
It
localization
looks genuine,
change.
too. Like, it looks like it's originally from the...
Yeah,
Like, it looks really
it's
good.
solid work. Good job, guys. But yeah, I'm going back. So, another girl symptoms, I guess. Ooh, I just had a thought. Oh no, it's probably not. There's no way that Yukito could have met the previous girl as a child, is there?
Nah, I doubt it.
No, because he mentions that his mother had left him at that shrine, and whenever she came back, he was sort of acting like that was really the first time he had met his mom.
Yeah,
And by that point, she'd already, left the
Yeah.
girl.
probably not the case.
I feel like it's his family's residual memories. That's my best
Yeah.
guess. That or the story and him just kind of having it mixed up as to
Yeah.
where the perspective was from.
Yeah, I think that's probably correct.
Well, I was thinking about, like, I can't remember the exact moment that the line comes from, but depending on the timing, it could be right about that time where, because there's a period where the memories are sort of starting to come back to Yukito, but they're not quite there yet. And it's sort of the same thing when you're trying to remember something and it's just sort of nagging at you. You're like, and he's sort of like, I think I remember hearing about something like this before. And then later on is whenever, it fills in the blanks and the rest of his memory comes back.
Yeah.
But that depends on, again, the timing.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's probably the most valid conclusion. Are you satisfied with that, Yaron?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Cool. So what was your second point?
Yeah, so for most of the common route and the early parts of Misuzu's route, Haruko's always like, whenever you see her, she's usually pretty upbeat. I mean, it's usually because she's drunk, but then just all of a sudden she just starts getting kind of upset and she just decides to leave. And I was wondering, like, what causes her to just suddenly decide to run away? Because it seemed to me like she almost seems to recognize what's really going on with Misuzu and, like, chooses to try and ignore it. Like, is she just scared?
It would be an odd coincidence for her to go on this trip at the exact same time when Misuzu's condition's getting really bad. But I don't know. Is it possible that she recognized it? Because it's not like she's had any past experience with this. Unless she has had relationships in the past which caused her to, like, almost die. I guess it's possible. What do you guys think?
She doesn't strike me as the type to have had that kind of relationship in the past. And I feel like it probably would have been brought up already by, like, Misuzu or like Haruko herself would have brought it up while she was drunk or something. But it is still totally possible.
You could also attribute it to her, like, kind of pushing it on to Yukito. She's just like, ball's in your court now.
Yeah, that was definitely what was
because
implied.
you're actually close to her, so.
We never ever saw her come back, did we?
No.
For all we know, she just left
I
forever.
I always viewed it as like, I mean, she doesn't want to be responsible for it, I guess. Whereas, like, Yukito kind of decides that he will be. Like, I wonder if it's just too much for Haruko to, like, handle.
The evidence just does seem to suggest that this is the first time this has happened, though.
It is odd.
I don't know.
Well, I do remember her specifically saying that she does stay away from her because she does break down and cry like that, because she has to be for her. If the closer she tries to get to her, the less she can be there for her.
Like, the crying we're already aware of, but the losing your sensation in your legs and the pain, I don't know if that's happened before. I don't think... Because Misuzu's
I don't know about that part specifically, but I'm just saying, like, I think that's a good part of the reason why she definitely tries to stay away from, like, into relationships with Misuzu.
And I mean, you also can't attribute it to what Yukito says, because she had made the decision to leave before Yukito tells her, like, hey, I had this thought that this may be connected to something else and she might die. Like, that came after she already made the decision to leave.
Yeah.
Right, when she was leaving, he's like,
yeah,
all this stuff is happening to Misuzu, and he says she goes pale, which is what made me think, did she know that this was gonna happen, or... I
don't think so. Personally, I think any mother would react that way, even if she doesn't love her kid. Well, that's the thing, I think Haruko loves Misuzu, it's just she can't, She has to put up those barriers. But just at least hearing that her daughter is going to die, wouldn't that, like, give you, like, kind of a freak out?
There's also, like, a really strong kind of mental, like you said, this wall that's been put up. I mean, how long did she say it'd been? Like 7 years of, like, being distant? Like, this is just the way it's always been, and Yukito's kind of coming into this, and he doesn't get it.
Yeah.
Like, Yukito is, like, really pissed off about how she's handling it, but he doesn't she even tells him, she's like, that's just because you don't understand. She's like, this is how it's been for forever, and this is how it's worked. Like, there's a mutual understanding between her and Misuzu about their distance.
Maybe...
At least as far as you can tell.
Maybe Haruko feels like she's getting in the way. And, like, she wants... Oh, I lost my train of thought.
Maybe she feels like she's becoming a burden to their developments, because, like, I know, like, whenever, like, she does try to kind of talk to Yukito, he's just like, you're always drunk, shut up, don't talk to me, I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah.
And she's just like, I'll leave you alone, I'll go away.
Yeah, but
like, she's kind of like
there was kind of like a increasing amount of tension. Maybe she just wanted to get out of the environment because she didn't want Misuzu to see any fighting. Maybe that's what was going on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Because...
Well, I kinda...
You want to definitely attribute it to, like, something positive that she's trying to do. I mean,
Of course.
I find it very hard to believe that she's just running away.
Hmm.
It sort of depends on how you do look at it. I mean, I think it's worth looking at is how does she really feel about Misuzu, because yeah, you can look and say there are certain areas where, okay, you know, yeah, it feels like she really cares for her. She went and got Yukito to, you know, become sort of a companion for her. Or do you look at it that because she does make the, you know, the comment that she didn't choose Misuzu, she got forced on her. And so maybe if she's viewing Misuzu as like a burden, then all of a sudden, if you look at her motives, then the rest of it changes. Then she was getting Yukito as a distraction instead of as a help. And if you're looking at it like that, then yes, she's running away because she's like, hey, it's your problem now. But if you look at it from the direction she really cares for, then there's kind of a chance that she could be sort of she could sort of be guessing what's happening here, because at this point she's got to know something's going on, because she had to go to the school and pick Misuzu up whenever she passed out at the school and brought her home. So
Took her to the clinic.
Yeah, and then she brought her back home. So she's got to know that something's going on at this point, and it could be that it's not that she doesn't want to deal with it, it's she's worried she may not be able to deal with it, and she's just sort of handing it over to Yukito.
Without love, it cannot be seen.
Yeah, it's like... I forgot what I was going to say.
Lots of good points being brought up. As you said, there's just all different ways of interpreting her actions.
It's hard to read Haruko, I guess, at this
Definitely.
point. Like, you don't see her very often outside of when she's drunk, or whenever she's just alone with Yukito after God knows what she does during every day. Like, you don't really know what she's going through, so it's hard to...
Oh.
It's just hard to read what's going on.
I need to draw attention to something. It was a little scene that you could easily forget. But remember when we saw that Haruko was driving away from the shrine?
I actually had that in my points.
Yeah. Would you like to talk about that?
I was going to bring that up.
Let's go.
So on the day of Misuzu's birthday, Yukito finds Haruko driving away from the shrine where there is currently no one there. And I just wanted to ask everybody, why? Why was she there? What do you think?
Well, all the times I've seen someone go to the shrine, it's usually to atone, you know, to seek some sort of like spiritual guidance. That to me screams that maybe Haruko feels some sort of guilt over something. Maybe it's her relationship with Misuzu. Maybe she feels lost. I don't know. Like, that definitely seems to me that there's not all to Haruko that meets the eye. You know, there's more going on.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, that definitely it makes you think that she does care. Like I said, it's just hard to really know what's going through her mind. I would assume probably a lot. Like, you would think that she's probably actually like really torn up about it. Like, she's been trying to deal with it for so long. Like, she probably really doesn't know what to do, whereas Yukito's only been there for a little while.
Yeah.
So like that's probably been really hard on her. I mean, she drinks every day, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It makes you think a lot.
And I mean, like, despite their separation, you could definitely infer that they definitely care about one another. Whenever Misuzu breaks the news to Yukito that Haruko isn't her mother and it's actually her aunt, but despite that, she still calls her mom because that's who she is. She talks about the thing with the chicks. And how like she wanted a plush dinosaur or whatever, and it was actually a chicken. But she said, well, in reality, I didn't care what it was. I just wanted it because it was from my mom. Like, there's that attachment is there.
Yeah, like it's like they have there's a wall between them. Like they both want to reach out to each other, but they can't. They both know they can't. It's such a weird dynamic.
There's like this. It's this weight of hopelessness in this story.
It's so sad.
Like between her and Haruko and Yukito and Misuzu and like all of these things that people want to do but they can't because of the situation. It's just like come on, you know what I mean? It's really heavy.
I'm definitely in the camp that Haruko cares for Misuzu personally.
But you want that mold to break. Like it's like at the end when Yukito wakes up on that bench and he's just like, I'm gonna do this, like I'm going. Like he gets super excited about what he wants to do.
Yeah.
That's why you feel that relief as well. You're like, yes, do it, man.
And then the credits start playing and it's all happy.
You finally start to see this all come to fruition. Like it's all starting to trying to break down that wall.
And then nope.
And then nope.
Not
wall, JK. Yeah.
Yeah, Haruka was such a deep and complex character that instead of it being just one specific thing, I think it's probably just an amalgamation of a lot of different things going on.
Mm-hmm. Like, we did talk a lot about Haruko in the Common Room podcast.
She's pretty great.
Yeah, it's just so much, like, that they don't show you and they don't tell you that you need to, like, kind of infer through her actions. And that it's even the slightest, like, facial expressions and stuff gives you sort of hints into her, you know, inner thoughts. It's a really well-written character. Especially for a key game.
Really well-written root.
Hell yeah.
Good job, Maida.
This was Maida, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
This was a Maida root, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yep.
We expect nothing less.
Lots of interwoven things and holes and just all sorts of stuff. It's very Maida-esque.
Does anyone off the top of their head remember what roots Maida did for canon?
Maida did Mai and Makoto.
Oh. He didn't do Ayu?
No.
Wow, you're right. That was Naoki Hisaya. Huh. So Maida wasn't even their main rider then.
No, he wasn't.
So basically AIR and Misuzu and I think, did he do Summer and... He would have done,
No, he did AIR.
He did AIR.
Did Misuzu and AIR.
Right, so this is basically his claim to fame.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I'd never really picked up the pieces together like that.
Humble beginnings.
Yeah, like, this is where everyone started becoming Maida fanboys, and he became their main rider.
AIR was definitely a maturation phase for him.
Wow. That's interesting. So this is like our first, like, exposure to his genius. That's really cool. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm learning stuff. I probably should know this by now, but apparently not.
I didn't know until like a couple months ago, so don't feel too bad.
The podcast so good. The podcast
key scenario writers topic so good.
Yeah, check it out, guys.
Oh! I have a thing that no one brought up.
Yeah.
Who the fuck was that guy?
Oh!
Yeah!
I forgot to talk about that.
I totally forgot about that guy.
I was going to bring it up and then I forgot.
Random sprited guy number 1.
Yeah,
Shimako!
someone bring that up. Go.
Shimako syndrome. Yeah, okay. I noticed some people were talking about this in common. And it was like spoiler tag, but I looked anyway.
Yeah, so did I.
Yep, same here.
Well, but yeah, so this guy comes around and he just like watches Yukito's puppet show and is like, this is interesting, but it's not very fun. It's like, well, fuck you, old man. And
I mean, what he says kind of makes sense. I guess he was just kind of like,
being sincere.
you're trying to play to kids, but they don't understand the draw of how fascinating it is. Like, they're not gonna understand the magical aspect. They just want to see something funny.
The guy was in like he was in like a business outfit, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And Yukito's like, he's some researcher. He's gonna take me to a lab.
Yeah. Lock me up. My crazy
I
powers.
can't help but wonder what kind of profession this guy actually has and what he's doing in the town. Like, is he like a salaryman or... I don't know.
I don't remember if he actually says.
No, I don't think so. But it just there's just one thing. It's just like, what's this
It's
guy's
one thing.
story?
This guy he's fascinated by Yukito's power, and he doesn't have any money on him, but he gives him a cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I was expecting him to come back later, but he just never did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Look, I think you can reason this out if you just look at the evidence. So let's go right in and say this man was going to give the cake to Misuzu. It's her birthday. He happened to have a cake for some reason. Doesn't that add up? Am I jumping
I didn't even think about that. It was on her birthday, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yep.
So, yeah. So, what's going on there? Does he have some relation to Misuzu? Speculate. Like, obviously...
I don't know. Maybe he's just a relative somewhere, and he just happened to know today was her birthday.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe he's a cake maker.
He's a baker.
Yeah. The fact that he was sprited definitely indicates that he'll be back.
I was gonna say that. I had the thought, how it's a little bit of assumption to think that it was for Misuzu and that he didn't just give it away. But then I remembered when he gave it to Yukito, it was wrapped. The box was wrapped.
And they actually
He said, "Don't open it until you get home."
they actually like
Yeah, then he just opens it immediately.
Of course.
they actually made it really painfully obvious in the anime for this scene. It's like the cake has like happy birthday on it. And it's only like a minute later that they're eating it with Misuzu, and it's like, yeah. So they're not trying to hide it in the anime. But yeah, if you didn't make that connection, bam, there you go. There's something going on there. And since he does have a sprite, it's heavily suggested that he'll be back in a future route. So you can look forward to finding out what he is later. Okay, I also found it interesting that in this route, the relationship that he has with Misuzu is quite different to Kano and Minagi, in just how he's bound to the town. Like in Minagi, it was very much like, oh no, all this stuff is happening, I guess I'm stuck here. Kano was like, oh, I've got money, so now, I'm stuck here. But here it feels more like... Misuzu is more like he's very content with being here. He doesn't seem to regret it as much. It's not like he's just up and trying to leave like he has in the other routes. It's more like, he's become part of the family. I really like that one scene where Haruko just crashes into the garage and they literally don't pay it any mind.
Yeah, that was nice.
He's really starting to fit in. It's a different development of his character. What do you think? Were you think it's on there, Biz?
I was gonna say I don't really agree with him not being comfortable in other routes, especially Minagi's. Like, he may lose sight of other things that he had in mind, but I mean, I still think he definitely got invested in something else because he wanted to and not because he had to.
I guess you're right.
Doesn't he actually say at some point during Misuzu's route that this is the first time he's ever actually been like part of a family or some line?
That's the key. One of the key things that I have here, and that is kind of a difference, is that this is. I mean, we know that Haruko is Misuzu's aunt, but like I said, that doesn't really matter. So this is definitely like the first time he's been in a home with like a family, and he said that that was always something that he wanted, and it's probably attributed to why he's so pissed off about it. Like, and that's why he goes and takes a walk or whatever, because he's just so furious about why these people have this life that he's always dreamed of, but it's such a mess.
Yeah.
Like, he's just like,
this isn't what I wanted.
This isn't fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being a bit selfish, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I put. I said it's almost like he's selfish. Like, he's in this situation, but he's upset with how it is. And I mean, I guess it's also kind of like a motivation for him. Like, he wants to fix it, but he just doesn't really know how, because it's kind of a foreign place to him.
Definitely.
Just kind of came in.
And then there's the whole point of, like, just after Yukito says that he might one day become friends with him, and it's like, Misuzu's like, that's enough. Like, shortly after that, she's like, so Yukito, I want to help you find the girl in the sky. And he's like, what, are you going to, like, travel the world with me? It's like, is he really that far away?
There's also a big difference here, like, with this route, is that, well, Yukito definitely, like, comes to this realization that the girl that he's with is more or less the girl, or very close to who he's looking for.
Yeah, he's pretty set in that.
He's pretty set on that, and he definitely makes it apparent whenever he's, like, looking to the sky, and Misuzu's talking about being in the air, in her dreams and stuff, and he says, well, you're not just in the air in your dreams, you're there in the air even now.
Yeah.
Which is exactly how the quote goes.
Yeah.
It says, you're always in the sky even now. Because the girl is always in the sky even now. So, like, he definitely makes that connection right then and there. And, I mean, Misuzu figures it out, like, saying that she's definitely very closely related, and she knows that.
And she's like,
so
I like that whole point of, like, you know what's happening to me, don't you?
Yeah, like, that's a big difference in this route, is that there's always the sense of something more happening here.
Oh, so something I just kind of wanted to mention that I just remembered is that now that I've read, the three main routes, Kano, Minagi, and Misuzu, during Minagi, I got the strong impression that, as opposed to the other routes, it seemed like, to me at least, they were trying to imply that the town that they were in was like some sort of reality marble, and that it itself was not real.
Yeah. We still haven't
And that, everything, like, it's sort of like an enclosed space somehow, and that it's just everything having to do with this town and everybody in it, it's just not real, is the impression that it seemed like they were trying to leave.
Yeah, the fact that the routes are called Dream.
I still don't want to believe that all of this is fake.
Well, yeah, like I said, that was Minagi specifically. I didn't feel like that in the other routes, which I thought I would, and I thought it was just kind of strange that it was so specific to Minagi's route that it felt like everything was kind of just fake. This was just like a made-up world.
I feel like the name Dream is attributed to, like, something different in every route.
Yeah.
Like, Minagi's dream is like you said, there's like a false, it's a false existence, the life that she's leading. And then Kano, the dream is about, like, much more supernatural things. And then in Misuzu's, the dream is about what's Misuzu's dreaming. Like, one of the focal points of the route is that she's seeing these visions.
It's a term that keeps coming up in different meanings.
It's like, it's definitely... It's not just one thing. Like, every route has the focal point of dreams
Mm-hmm.
in some way, shape, or form. Just in Misuzu's, I find it very prominent in that it's both in Yukito's perspective and how he's dreaming about his past, and Misuzu is dreaming about the past and is sort of seeing these visions as the story or the lore says she would.
Mm.
So, I have a question.
Sure.
So, in some of Key's more recent games, you've had to read all the routes before, like, all the care routes before you can get this, like, ending route.
Right.
Do you have to do that with AIR?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, what happens at the end of Misuzu? Do you just not get the last scene?
You get it. It's always there.
And then nothing happens after that?
No.
That's
This is
Oh,
why.
man,
This
that's
is
so
why.
weird.
This is why whenever people say that they want to read Misuzu first, I'm like, no, don't do that. 'Cause you're gonna be kicking yourself the rest of the video and being like, what just happened? Now you can get right to it after you finish.
It is very weird how it's kind of structured in a way that would make you want to play that route first. It definitely seems to be that way.
Yeah.
Because you have to go out of your way to find like Minagi and Kano's routes. Like the Misuzu route, it's kind of accessible from the very start. But you have to like actively avoid Misuzu to get to the other routes. And it's like... I don't like that.
I mean, I actually kind of like that, thinking about it, because I was gonna say earlier that in how Yukito's mother removes his memories that would automatically set him on this path, the way that she sets it up is she sets it up like it's fate, and it's like no matter what happens, life is gonna bring him to that girl, and he's gonna have to experience that, like, or at least bring him very close. And I actually really like that because the game is drawing you towards that. It's just like fate. It's like that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's also a kick in the balls when you get to that and you can't see the ending because, you have to do the
Yeah,
other
it's-
irrelevant routes first.
From a story perspective, it's a very cool thing, but from a gameplay perspective, it's
I mean,
kind of...
as we all know, AIR is not exactly applauded for its structure, but I still like the idea.
Could have been done better, I think.
I also still like the other routes anyway, so
No, the routes... I'm not saying the routes are bad.
I'm the one person who doesn't find it so irrelevant, like, I just want to read Misuzu and get to the end. Like, I don't agree with that. I actually like how the whole package comes together.
I just wish there was, like, the structure was more inviting to people who wanted to do the other routes first. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I can see what you're saying as far because Misuzu's in particular feels like a very natural progression, like off the common route, because all the other routes you can point to a definite time and go, okay, here's where I'm now on Minagi's route, and now I'm on Kano's route. You know that there's a definite change, whereas Misuzu's it just sort of keeps flowing from the common route, and you don't ever really know, hey, where have I jumped off common and now I'm in Misuzu. So yeah, I could see that'd be very easy, just, no prior knowledge of the game, just playing through it. Just if you're going with the flow that the game's giving you, you're gonna be pulled towards Misuzu's route.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not perfect.
But I just wanted to bring up something with you guys. This might be nothing... I might just be looking into it too much, but there's just this one scene that seemed a bit weird. You walk into Misuzu's room to check on her when she's sick, and there's just a line which says, like, you hear the sound of wings flapping before you open the door.
Yeah.
What do you think that might be?
I completely missed that.
Yeah, it's just kind of there.
Yeah. Like, I remember that, and I was thinking that they would kind of expand upon that, but they never did.
Never did, no.
Well, they still could.
Also, there was less bird talk in Misuzu. Like, birds were pretty prevalent throughout Minagi and Kano, but not so much Misuzu.
I don't know.
Because Misuzu is the bird.
Oh, no.
I guess right. Yeah. If ever there was a bird.
I mean, you could view it as like maybe it's some sort of like a what's the word I'm looking for? Personification doesn't sound right, but some sort of realization of like the dream she's in, because she's always in bed, right? And she's dreaming of flying or whatever. So maybe it was just kind of connected to that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, she brings it
I
up
can't
too.
really say.
Whenever she does her picture diary, and whenever Yukito tells her to change it instead to what she wants to do, that's one of the things, I think, out of like 3 things she mentions right off the bat she wants to do. One's go to the beach with Yukito, and it was either 2 or 3 was she still wanted to pet a crow.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay, so following up with, now that I've sort of set a standard, I guess, for myself that I've got to go digging for something ridiculous in these words. So anyway, I thought I'd get out of Misuzu with nothing other than one thing that drove me nuts was the pig in the living room. That was there, and I swear I have looked up everything about pigs, meanings for pigs, every kind of pig, and I just couldn't make sense of why there was a pig in that living room.
What pig? What pig?
In Misuzu's living room, beside the TV, in the door going outside, there's what looks to be like a little scrunchy toy pig that sits right in front of the door. It's there every single time, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out why that's there, and I eventually gave up on it because I got fed up with it. Once I got over the pig and got over it, I'd sort of accepted that, hey, there's not going to be anything here, and then lo and behold, I was proven wrong. But anyway, there's a scene in particular where I believe it's after one of Yukito's arguments. Anyway, he wakes up in the shed. So he had obviously went outside to sleep in the shed. And there staring me in the face in the shed was boxes everywhere in the shed, all of them nondescript except for 3 of them. There were 2 on the top shelf and 1 on the bottom shelf. The 2 on the top shelf had the words Asase, A-S-A-S-E, written across them. That was sort of where I started, and I looked into it, but that's really didn't have a whole lot. Like, the closest thing I could get to it was there's a small group of people out in Africa that worship a god called Asasya, who they worship him as the god of the earth, and he's married to the goddess of the air. But I figured that was probably irrelevant, so maybe there's just a shipping company named Asas, or maybe I just missed that. So I moved on, and on the bottom shelf there's a box, and it's a little hard to see if you're not really looking for it, because there's a ray of light in that scene that shines into, there's only one, and it shines into the little area there, and it sort of covers up the box. So it's a little hard to see, but you can still read it. And on the box is the word Apson, A-P-S-O-N. And so I started looking into that, and at first I went in the complete wrong direction because there's a little hole-in-the-wall record store in Tokyo called La Opson, who sell sort of this weird sort of, off-beat kind of Mexican records in Japan, which is weird. And they had a guy who did a song to commemorate their 10th anniversary, who, oddly enough, since we were talking about it the other night, he does noise music. And so I looked into him, and he's done stuff like he did an art project where he went around Tokyo and collected manga pages and pages from porn magazines that people have thrown around. He made an art collaboration with them. Really, really weird guy. And so anyway, I tried to tie him into Maeda or anybody really, and I couldn't really do it. And so I went back to looking from square one, and I went in the wrong direction. And sort of this is what I ran into. Apson, and it sort of, we've sort of touched on it a little bit, maybe the idea of religion, just being some religious tones. They mentioned the angel in Minagi's route, and talked about the crosses on the uniforms and everything. So anyway, Apson is another name for Apsara. And Apsara comes from the Indian form of Hinduism. And apsaras they're females in Hindu mythology. They are the female spirits of clouds and water, and that's in the Hindu Buddhist mythology. And so you look, and the Japanese form of Buddhism sort of evolved off the Hindu or the Indian form. And so in Japanese Buddhism,
Wait, Hinduism or Buddhism? You're getting them mixed up. You said Hinduism. Then.
It's because apsara is sort of they sort of bridge both, but mainly it's in Buddhism. And I wrote them both in my notes. That's why I keep saying both. But okay, so Japanese Buddhism is sort of spawned off of Indian Buddhism. And so there's a figure in Japanese Buddhism called Tennin, and the Tennin were developed from Apsara. And the Tennin are basically these beings that live in the Buddhist heaven. But some legends in Japanese Buddhism portray them that there are certain Tennin that are these solitary creatures, that they choose to live alone, and they live like up on mountain peaks away from everyone. They isolate themselves. And the Tennin, the way that they are portrayed, Tennin have the ability to fly, and one way that they are portrayed is in most artwork they're shown with this feathered kimono called a hagoromo, which roughly translates to a dress of feathers. And there's more rare instances that they're actually drawn with wings, with feathered white wings, are the Tennin. And the Tennin, if it sounds familiar, it's because Tenshi came from Tennin, which are angels.
Ten is heaven.
10 is yeah. 10 is heaven, and these are Tennin, or what these are, and they're sort of spawned off of that idea of the apsaras from the Indian Buddhism mythology. And so it was sort of interesting that it tied back into that, because I was kind of wondering, the whole story of AIR is revolving around this sort of heavenly figure of a girl with wings who is isolated in the sky by herself.
Yeah.
Why the fuck was it on a cardboard box?
And,
who designed these background CGs? Like, I don't know, maybe we are looking into it too much. It's entirely possible. If you look deep enough...
But it's still really interesting.
If you look deep enough, you can find connections between anything.
I think the book was the most astounding.
Yeah.
But this is still interesting.
It's possible.
That's a pretty good connection there. Like, yeah, I got it. Nice.
Bowie, you need to keep this up. We're not gonna let you go with the next two routes without doing something
Bowie getting
stupid.
all the biz points, though.
We're not even impressed anymore. It's just expected of you.
Yeah.
It's like, there's something about seemingly useless information that just kind of spawns from things that, I enjoy so much for some reason.
Bowie's always been really good at that. He does that with, everything.
Crazy good attention to detail.
I'm scared, though. I don't know how AIR and Summer are going to go, because they started reusing backgrounds, and I'm running out of stuff to look at.
That's true. But yeah, Sasuga, Bowie. Good job. We're kind of reaching the end of our rope here, so... Biz, is there anything anybody else wanted to bring up before Biz said his final point?
Well, the only thing I can think of that we haven't touched on is something that there isn't really anything to say about, in my opinion, is that in the dreams, the girl in the sky mentions that she's being captured and chained, in a literal sense.
Yes.
And, yeah. But I don't really think there's anything to touch on there, it's just kind of a thing.
Yeah, There's obviously a lot more to this girl in the sky mythos than we originally thought, I think. I guess we'll find out more later.
Only time will tell.
Maybe. That didn't really work for Canon's route, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is very true. We can't be certain.
I guess I don't know if I can beat that big realization, but it's just a few, I guess, questions I wanted to pose to people.
Sure.
One is I actually just recalled this, so kind of a quick throwback, but on the idea of unimaginable pain, Yukito actually said something really, I guess, insightful and just really interesting whenever he's talking about the girl in the sky, and he says, well, as an omnipotent being, or as like an angel or a god, such an existence probably isn't so bad. But he said something that I found really intriguing, is that when you imply that to someone who is of human nature, it becomes immensely saddening.
Wait, where was this from?
It's in the Misuzu route.
Just somewhere on the route.
Yeah, they're talking about the girl in the sky, as they do, and he's like kind of talking about being in the air for so long. If you were to apply that to a human, when he's thinking about what Misuzu could be going through, he's thinking about how sad that is, and like that's an immense amount of loneliness.
Yeah.
You can't really picture that as if you were a god, because if you're a god, then just who knows what they're doing.
It's the kind of
but
idea,
if
like
human,
if you look at a painting on a wall of like a girl in the sky, I'd be like, oh, that's beautiful, you know. But if you were to really think about it like that, if there's like a human trapped in the sky for like, I don't know, forever.
Yeah. You know, having nothing but, you know, the wind beating on you forever, never to land. Like, imagine a bird trying to fly forever. I remember, like, in the beginning of the route, he's talking about soaring through the sky and, like, trying to go as far as he can, as his wings will let him, because if you're in the sky for such a long time, that air is going to beat on you, and you're going to get tired. Like, birds can't just fly forever. They kind of more or less, like, glide. Well, it's like trying to be a human and running around forever. Like, your legs are going to give.
Yeah.
So, like, whenever you have no time to give, like, you're just always pressing on. Like, that's an immense amount of pain and, like, loneliness and sadness.
Yeah.
So, I just thought that was really interesting. Like, that was a nice kind of putting it into perspective, I guess.
That might go back to, like, the pain that Yukito feels in his back.
just how like, how much suffering that is.
Yeah.
It definitely puts it in perspective.
Yeah. Definitely.
But anyways, we reach the end of the route here, and we get this extra scene post-credits, where Yukito returns to Misuzu, and he's like, I'm gonna make you smile, right? Watch this show. And something happens, where you're put into Misuzu's point of view. I guess not. I guess, well, maybe at the very end you could kind of say it is, but basically something happens with the doll, and Yukito's mother, like, talks to him, and going back, his mother told him that the puppet holds everyone's wishes. And to bring all that power into reality, Yukito needs to, like, come to that elevated state, I guess, where he, like, really is in tune with what's going on.
Yeah.
And Yukito makes a wish to do as he envisioned, you know, in his mind whenever they have that vision where he, like, tells Misuzu, let's go to the beach, let's go play. As opposed to whenever he's just like, no, I have something to do. Which, I mean, you could kind of attribute that as, like, that's what he has in his mind and he's trying to remember, because, you know, he wants to act like, you know, I've been here this whole time with this girl smiling, and I've enjoyed my stay here, so I'm gonna see it to the end. I just found it interesting that he makes this wish to, if he could do it again.
Yeah.
And some stuff happens, and I just wanted to know what everyone thought about it.
Yarian, what do you think?
I have no idea.
Come on, don't give me that.
Go to Link. Link needs to think.
Think, Link, think.
You want what I think? I mean, I think that basically through his Hojutsu, we've pretty much... What little we know about Hojutsu is that it's sort of an extension of himself. So through that, and through some amazing magic, he's basically able to put himself into this doll that's full of powerful magic and wishes and dreams, and it can do a lot of stuff. And basically, I think that, like it says, he's going back. It's setting the clock back in time. And he himself is probably going to retain his memories, because I don't think it'd be that useful if he didn't. But, yeah, that's how I see it.
It's awfully interesting that if this is some sort of time machine, then we actually see...
You know, what happens here is very similar to what happens to his mother. It's like he's putting himself into this doll, and then, like, I guess that all those wishes are to be granted? I don't know, it's interesting.
The regrets of...
That's pretty much what I was going to say, was that, like, it's... In this time, I remember specifically, they say that he's not just doing it again, he's literally putting everything he is into the doll this time.
Yeah.
Now, isn't this very similar to the Kano route?
Yeah. We already talked about this.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's like putting his, like, he's joining his family. It's like the unfulfilled wishes of the bloodline rest inside the doll. And that was an interesting line. But I was just going to say, if this really is a time machine, then how come it is that Misuzu wakes up and she sees the doll without Yukito? What happened to Yukito? You know? I don't know. It's so is it a time machine? Is he going inside the doll? I don't know. It's just I don't know what's
Maybe
happening.
we'll find out later.
It's confusing. Yeah. It's a lot to think about. But
You have completed the AIR tutorial. Congratulations.
if you'd like to purchase the full game, please visit visualarts.com. Now, I guess we should move on to the fan art corner.
Community corner.
Patchy,
It's not the community corner. This isn't the monthly terror. It is.
Boo.
No, it's most certainly not.
I'm pretty sure it's community fan art.
Community
Yes,
fan art corner.
There we go. So, we've, in an interesting twist, we've actually got some music this time. I won't play it on here just to save our members the embarrassment, potentially. But, if you want to check out, Suika Shoujo and myself have posted covers of Tori no Uta. So, yeah, you can feel free to check those out in the AIR fan art topic or the key music covers topic. As for actual drawn art, we have a submission by Nyotkon. Nyotkon? What?
Nyotyon.
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 Nyotcon.
Nyotkon. If you're on YouTube, I'll put it up on the screen now. It's pretty cool. We have a submission by Akito Nisama. Can't forget that Nisama.
Cow.
Go. I noted that the Stegosaurus shirt was the wrong one, but what? I am nitpicking. We have JDAM Sid. I don't even. How do you pronounce that?
Jade
I always
Sid.
pronounced it J-Dam personally, but I don't know.
And
There are many different kinds of juice in this world.
we have that piece of art by, I don't know, was it Link?
That was me.
And we also have Suka Shoujo. She was at the beach and she thought to herself, what would Misuzu and Yukito do if they actually got to the beach? And she ended up drawing their names, Misuzu and Yukito. I thought that was really cute. Definitely I love this kind of like real life fan art, if you will. A little tribute. Very cool. So that wraps up the fan up submissions for the Misuzu route. We're on the home stretch now. We've only got the summer route and the air route left, and then we're done. So very exciting. Yeah. So I guess now it's about time we announce our route MVP for the Misuzu route. Drum roll, please. Nutcon!
Yay! Nutcon!
Banzai!
You finally got it, Notcon. You've been like on this.
Ometete
You've been on this book club from the start, and you've been contributing some really quality discussions. So you're finally getting recognition. I think a lot of the times you're like quite late with your posts. Like I remember one was like a really good one that was actually like an hour after we finished recording. But you finally got it this time, so I have to commemorate you on that. So good job. You did it, not Kyon. I have to always like say that name weirdly. But yeah, so I'll be in contact with you to get your prize organized. And that about wraps up this episode of the AIR Book Club Podcast. And we'll be sure to see you next fortnight for the summer route. I hope you really enjoy that. It's going to be very interesting. Going to be a lot to talk about.
Well, as you know, as a community, we these podcasts are widely a commemoration to the works that we're covering. So I think it's important that we stop and recognize one of the most hard-hitting moments in Kiwian history that I can recall, and commemorate this specific episode of the AIR Book Club Podcast to Johnny, the dog. Johnny passed away on July 21st, 2001. It was a heavy day for all Key fans. Johnny was one of the most excellently written characters that we've ever seen, and God bless Maida-sama for allowing us to experience this time with him. So thank you, Johnny. Rest in peace, buddy.
Johnny!
Excellent.
See you next episode.